the Little Johnny Chronicles number 9, the Troll Series 4.0. Today I think we're going to talk about other ways to combat the troll. I think I'm trying to describe in thorough detail how I feel about the troll, why I feel that way, because of the troll's destructive nature, and outline the actual trolls in our lives, again, so we can identify the behavior in ourselves and also identify that behavior in others. I think this exercise is mostly geared towards improving your own behavior, because you really can't control. You might be able to influence, but we really can't control, at least as individuals, what other people are doing, inside their head, and how they're behaving and why they're reacting to what they're reacting. There's another component to that, though, where we can influence, but I think that's more top driven, and we're going to get into that. So how can we combat the troll? I view it in terms of helping the troll and behaving a certain way and comporting ourselves in I guess much more dignified fashion. And in doing so, we help the troll, and we're not helping them to create more chaos, but we're assisting them in trying to achieve a level of better behavior. But it's easy, right? So in our own personal lives, when we have the opportunity to do a thing and react a certain way, what are we going to do? Are we going to take the high ground? Are we going to inject some maturity into the situation and try to react in a manner that's appropriate, regardless of what the other people think? Because I think a lot of our behavior comes from expectations. Oh, boss, why didn't you get mad? Because it wouldn't have helped. Like, I'm going to try to stay calm, cool, and collected, so I can make a better decision, so we can achieve a better outcome for the mission, for the team, for all the different role players involved. It's not a hard one. So how do we help the troll? Don't be one. Just don't be a troll. Don't participate. It has to do with yourself. It has to do with the self and how you feel about you. In my opinion, when people lash out or act out, or they frequently act out as a form of habit, there's something underneath. There's something boiling underneath that causes them to have that negative type of response all the time as a habit. And if you don't address those issues, it can continue to fester. It can turn into a bigger issue. And so as we identify the troll in us, it helps us it gives us a clue as to what might be bothering us, what improvements we might still need to make in our own lives in order to behave in a better way. And why do we want to behave in a better way? I'm going to get to that. Well, the primary reason is for you. You want to do it for others, but the primary reason is for you, because you want to manifest the best version of yourself in this life. And why do you want to do that? Well, again, if I want to take it back to the religious component of our lives, the spiritual component of our lives, the better behaved we are, the better paradise looks, or the better opportunity we have to enter paradise with our God or gods, or however that works in your life. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. It's just, you behave better so that you can maybe get a better reward in the next life. I don't think we should be working for rewards, right? Life's a journey, not a destination. But if it helps you to frame it in a way that invokes better behavior from you and treat your brother and sister better, I don't see how that's a bad thing. It's when the dogma enters and the things that we really don't understand, or we try to act it out because the preacher said so, that I think that those are the components that are off-putting to me. But I think the general thread there between all of our spiritual undertakings and our spiritual and religious ideologies, or theocracies, theologies, whatever the words you want to use, the thread is the improvement of the self, being a better person, being a better man or woman. And there are reasons for that. I'm not going to get into it yet, but we're going to hit that. All right. What other thing can we do to help the troll behave better? Don't feed them. It's that simple. Like, those two primary things is don't be a troll and don't feed them. Those are probably the biggest components we can do to combat the troll. on the individual level, when we're just trying to interface with the troll, either as ourselves or the trolls that enter our lives and we have to deal with them on a one-on-one basis. Don't be one, and don't feed them. It sustains them and helps them to thrive. Think about the weed. You have weeds. You got one weed, you already know that you're going to get several others. That's just the way it works, that weeds thrive. They're designed either by a creator or just through their adaptation mechanisms over time to be resilient, to be hardy. And, you know, you think about their seed distribution mechanism, what comes to mind is like the dandelion. The weed, it grows, it becomes a beautiful, first perspective, right? It becomes a beautiful flower, and then it turns into that little cotton thing with the seeds on it, and you blow on it, and they spread out like wildfire. And so a seed is very, a weed is very resilient, and it'll spread fast, and it goes from yard to yard and field. You get what I'm saying? And it doesn't take very long to have a weed infestation. Think of the tumbleweed. Like, how genius is that the dang plant grows, and when it dries out, it breaks away from its stem and starts to tumble to distribute its seeds further on down the line. Like, what the fuck? That's crazy. It's cool. To me, that's beautiful. But when we're talking in terms of a troll, when we feed them, they are like a weed, because they take those seeds of malcontent and discontent, and they continue to tumble through our society and distribute their poison seeds. And they're just unhealthy people. Like the troll, we're trying to rehabilitate the troll because they're just unhealthy people. I think there are very few folks who cannot be healed from that type of behavior. And, you know, I'm speaking judgmentally, but I mean, fuck, at this point in time, the troll is so detrimental and they're so hurtful and impactful in a negative way to our society that we need to deal with that motherfucker. We need to deal with that motherfucker in ourselves, and address it with our brother and sister and say, hey man, we could do better. Let's stop some of this stuff. And again, it's because they're like weeds. As soon as you start to feed them and you start to react to their nonsense, it emboldens them. It boosts their ego. It helps them, gives them an inflated sense of self, and now they're right about all the bullshit and chaos that they're causing, and then it gives them license to start knocking down other doors and just being a general nuisance in all the different ways that I've already discussed. All right. What else? So don't feed the troll. Don't be a troll. So what's the third way? What is another way? Because I'm having a hard time developing other solutions than besides do not be a troll and do not feed them. What other things can we do in our lives to try to keep the troll at bay or eliminate the troll to a high degree? I think this one's simple enough as well. Set the example. Our young people, our children, are looking up to us. I think once we get to a certain age, we start to understand that we become the teacher somehow. We are no longer solely the student, because, you know, up until a certain age, you're all received, right? Some kids or some young people mature faster than others, and so they go from to receive to transmit, and they're really intelligent, and they can start to teach their peers or even adults, you know, how they're supposed to be or do or whatever the fuck. And anyway, as we grow up as adults, eventually you have to take on that role of teacher, because you should have, hopefully, learned enough to be able to start handing out and distributing good lessons that you've learned in life, so that the people that come behind you can avoid those pitfalls. And you can't just tell them what to do and what not to do. It should come with a philosophy, because it's the philosophy you want them to adopt. We can all see the pothole in the ground, or the whole pothole in the ground, and walk around it. but the broader concept is avoiding, hazardous obstacles or something like that. I guess I'm challenged to come up with a good analogy there, but I think you get the picture. We can't just tell them right from wrong, because it's not always going to be easy to distinguish the right and the wrong of any situation. They're going to have to machinate and go through a thought process to say, hey, is this good or bad for me? Because sometimes, situations are dynamic. Everybody's situation is different. And so the right and wrong of it is often based on a philosophy or a thought or a faith-based principle. And so we have to understand that our children are looking at us. And when it comes time to teach, we have to have good lessons, not bullshit lessons. And I say that with a grain of salt, because depending on your upbringing, might determine what you think is a good lesson or not. And often, or not often, maybe often, I don't know. Sometimes nobody's taught you anything good, and you're kind of making it up as you go. So the word good there is subjective. I mean, you might be teaching people how to come up and be good drug dealers because somebody told you that was a good idea. And you've lived your life that way for a long time, but nobody came along to tell you, hey man, maybe you don't want to do that. Here are all the consequences for your behavior. I don't know if that's a good example, but that's the one that comes to mind. Our young people are looking at us, and there's a moral imperative for us to behave in a proper way, operate with the level of decorum that represents the adult in a positive light. Because let's get to it. If you look at social media, you get the impression, or at least I get the impression, that the youth doesn't respect the adult. And I wonder why. And it's because, and I ask myself, well, what the fuck is going on with that? When I was a young person, I admired adults. I looked up to them. And maybe some of it was naivety, not understanding that probably anytime I walked into a room, the highest maturity level I could ever achieve, regardless of the education level, regardless of the social economic background, the highest maturity level you can ever achieve in a room, in my opinion, is high school. The 18-year-old. Collectively, right? On average, that's as good as it gets, I think. Because I can look in any room and you can start to see the cliques form, and those are the jocks, those are the nerds, those are the outcasts or the misfits. Here's the smart people. It happens in virtually any setting, regardless of the age of the adults. So I just view it as high school. And anyway, our children are watching that behavior. And what happens is, as we navigate our lives and we begin to act out things in real life, and the kids are watching us react to scenarios, if we look strong and we look like we put thought into it, and it appears that we're trying to reach an agreement or compromise with the offending party, or if we're the offending party, we're trying to get something out for ourselves or work out a dilemma, the kids are observant to that. They see us having that dialogue. They see you thinking about things, maybe giving something away in return for something else. I mean, it's a beautiful exchange if you watch it in real time. But are they seeing that anymore? The reason I brought up social media is because they don't. Our kids were raised on through the screen partially. A lot of their inputs come from the screen that we're looking at. And if that's the case, then you can just understand that as they're scrolling through their timeline, if they have a smartphone, that the adults are the ones that are managing the room, and they're acting like shit towards each other. They're trolling the fuck out of each other in the comment section. And you think the kids don't see that? What do you expect from the behavior? I see grown-ups all the time, the boomers and the people my age. I think I'm Gen X. Oh, what's wrong with the millennials? What's wrong with the Gen Zers? What's wrong with these other generations? It's like, it's the fucking adults in their lives. They didn't teach them shit. I don't give a fuck how you cut it. The young person coming up is not a blank canvas. They're born with certain qualities, but it's up to us to help them develop their canvas, to give them the color spectrum that they need to paint their lives in a good way, in a positive way. But instead, we give them all these ugly colors, these broken crayons, these short trolling blurbs that we assault each other with that have no philosophy behind it except take the other guy down. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. Just say something and get under their skin. I don't see it different. And let's move on to the next example. And it's the obvious one. Our leaders. Our leaders. When the president or the candidate for the presidency, either one of those, behaves in a way that is unbecoming, putting other people down, just being a general nuisance, not understanding when they're over their head in capability, that they're drowning in because they're not capable, and they fail to move to the side to let somebody else lead. All the different negative quality characteristics that currently plague the highest leadership position in the nation, what that does is it gives license to the citizen to behave in very much the same way. And that's exactly what's happening. You had Obama, and maybe it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't that bad. Then you had Trump, and of course, he's a different type of character, different personality. And, it's not necessarily the picture of the model citizen that we would desire to have there. And that's the truth. I don't have nothing against the guy, but that's what I observed. And the same thing with our current president. You have President Biden, whose maybe intellectual capacity is being diminished by age and time and natural occurrences, right? This is just nature. But we're unwilling to acknowledge that fact so that we can get out of the way to give our country the opportunity to maybe have somebody with a fully functioning brain in the position. I don't mean to be cruel, but that's the verbiage. Those are the right words. And so when we look at the leaders, the people who are supposed to be our role models, who are supposed to be the model citizen, behaving in a way that's the antithesis of, well, it gives license to everybody else to act like shit. And it's contagious. It's contagious. The fucking troll is contagious. That's one of the characteristics of the troll. They're highly contagious. It's that weed. They spread all those seeds of malcontent, and they distribute them far and wide, and it's easy, and they have a system. And of course, if we lend that energy, we're part of the problem. And you can keep going down the line. Look at our Congress. You have literally sophomorish behavior. I started with, in my opinion, the highest maturity level you can get in a room with more than, 5 people at the same time is high school. You're going to get that. You're the average of everybody in the room, or there's an average of maturity in the room, and it's based on all the different people who are there. And maybe the group is long. This is not a scientific, these are not scientific numbers. It's just kind of based on my experience. But you get 10 people, you'll definitely know that the maturity level in the room isn't, a 45-year-old. Even if the average age in the room is 45, the maturity level is a different story. I think high school is the highest you're ever going to get. If you get more than 5-10 people in a room, that's just the way it works. And there's nothing wrong with that per se, but it's the behavior behind that maturity that I'm concerned about. Because you could be a high schooler and be a quality human being and not be a fucking troll, and you can eliminate a lot of that trolling behavior. We underestimate the capability of our children all the time, but we also underestimate our own impact to that maturity level, and a lot of the things that are going on right now is our fucking fault. And so I said all that to say is, if you look at the behavior of Congress in the aggregate, I don't think you even get to high school maturity. I think it's very much junior high. It looks more like a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old in the level of maturity that they demonstrate on literally a daily basis. You hear about certain congressmen or women who are out there committing sexual acts in public, or acting in a sexually deviant way in broad daylight. Why are they doing that? They're supposed, these people are elected leaders, even though they're human beings, they're supposed to be the creme de la creme in certain aspects. Maybe they don't know the entire law, and maybe they don't completely grasp the complexities of running a government. But that's why, they get elected to office. They learn, right? You have sophomore, what do they call it? Freshmen, senators, and congresspersons, all that stuff. However that works. And so you can't expect them to go in there knowing everything, but we can expect them to go in there and act like a fucking grown-up and bring the level of the room, the level of the nation, the level of maturity in the nation to a higher degree. They're supposed to elevate that maturity level. They're supposed to, that's what leadership is you're helping us establish those higher standards, those higher bars that we want to reach. We're not supposed to fucking lower it because we're degraded because they're a fucking troll in Congress. And or the Senate, even our fucking Senate majority leaders, pick a side, pick it any time in the last 8 years. They're fucking shit. It's all a game. They're manipulating the public and the constituency so that they can stay in power. I want to speak some other way, but the evidence is just apparent at this point. And so our political leaders, they are setting such a bad example for the rest of us, because they're in the limelight, they're in the news, they're the ones in the, to use the military analogy, they're the ones that are in front of the formation, and that the young soldier is supposed to aspire to be to look at as the role model. This is how I need to be in order to lead my people one day, hopefully, but also be an effective combat troop and know the ropes and be an expert in my craft, not just technically, but tactically. So in that vein, none of our elected leaders are behaving in such a way. And you can keep going down the line in levels. The state, some of our state legislatures are behaving in trolling behavior. They've just become a huge point of contention, a place of chaos. I live in California. It's a gigantic state. And so I imagine, like the nation, it's a hard bureaucracy to manage. And I don't envy that position, but I also understand that maybe it's not so hard, because I'm looking at the behavior of our elected leaders here and see how atrocious it is. They've thrown the citizen, they've thrown the constituency of the state under the bus in favor of corporate management. And all you have to do is look at the energy, and the cost of food, the staples, the cost of housing in the state, the lowest rung. You look at the lowest rung and how they're unable to help them, regardless of how many resources they throw at the problem: homelessness, drug addiction, expend billions of dollars, literally, can't account for where it's going, can't account for how it's being used. And then the citizen becomes a fucking troll in return, because they finally get the money and say, hey, we're going to put this building over here and it's going to house 100 people. We're going to start to solve the homeless problem by getting people off the street. And then you get the community that says, not in my backyard. And the community will argue under the guise that, hey, nobody thought out this plan. Why are we doing it this way? But in my opinion, the citizen's full of shit. And now you're concerned? Where were you 3 years ago? There was no city hall. You didn't attend a city hall meeting until they wanted to put the homeless shelter 2 blocks away. And so it's all self-interest. We're not really interested in helping to solve the problem on our level either. But why is that? It's because our fucking leaders also behave in such a way. They set the tone. They set the example. They set the pace. The leaders up front. And if the leader's moving slow, the rest of the formation is moving slow. If the leader's moving fast, the rest of the formation damn sure is trying to catch up or keep up. And you leave the stragglers behind. And in combat, that's not a bad thing. We police up our people. We police up the stragglers. But society doesn't work that way. The stragglers are the homeless, the downtrodden, the ones that can't do for themselves. And we just let them flap in the wind. And the only time we address the issue is when they're too close to our house. And that's bullshit. I mean, but that's the tone that that the leadership sets, and that's what happens when you have bad examples. When you have people up front who are supposed to be the representative of what we're supposed to be, if they're a piece of shit, guess what the citizen's going to be? They're going to be a piece of shit. It's highly likely they're going to be acting in a shitty behavior as well. So you don't have to believe me, but if you peek outside if you come outside your house or get on the internet and see how people are behaving, turn on the news, you'll see no good examples. It's all bad. So anyway, let's keep going though. So you have the highest level in the land, on the planet, possibly the presidency acting like a troll, not setting a good example for the nation, regardless of what political party is in charge. You have the same thing with our Congress, the Senate and the House of Representatives. You got the leaders in there, the speakers and the minority leaders, acting like just political puppets of some sort that aren't serving the people. Like, matter of fact, like, what the fuck are they doing besides trying to retain their position in power under the guise that they're helping us? Because they haven't done anything to help us, or else they'd solve problems like the drug crisis, immigration prices, medical, the inability for us to get affordable medical coverage, just all these fucking things that are plaguing our society right now. They go addressed, but no solutions get applied to them. Like, that's the definition of immaturity. I see the problem, but I ain't gonna do nothing about it. I'm just gonna pretend, because that's really what it is. It's pretend. They're pretending to solve problems. And so let's go down the line. Our judicial system, it's highly politicized. It's become part of the political apparatus. In a place where Lady Justice is supposed to be blind, you can't be blind if you're part of if you're part of the corruption. I'll just put it like that. If money has seeped in to your organization to influence it in any way, and you're supposed to be a position of an institution of integrity that can't be influenced by a dollar, then there's a problem. I don't see it any other way. There's a conflict of interest at a minimum. I mean, at a minimum, obviously there's way more problems than that. But it's just readily apparent to the public. And I think we should all acknowledge this. And we don't have to if maybe the court is deciding decisions in your way. But if you're going to be fair, and because there's a component of fairness that's required in this life that we should demand, that says that even if we don't like what the arbiters of justice decide on our behalf, that we can trust that they made the decision for the whole, not for selected interests, selected groups, or to help steer society in a certain way that fulfills some sort of selfish need or desire. But that's exactly what's happening with the highest court of the land. Probably one of the greatest things, the greatest, I guess, monuments of justice modern times has given the planet. Probably our judicial system is collapsed. It's become compromised, and is that the example we want to set of the word justice, of the concept of justice, that it can be bought and sold or easily influenced or manipulated? Because if they're doing something in our interest, they have yet to explain it. Nobody has explained to me why a person can or should be above the law. Like, there's just a tenet of accountability, is that you can be held accountable, because there are no bounds and restrictions. We've all seen these things easily cream out of control when there's no controls. There are no brakes, right? You get the Kim Jong-uns, you get the Vladimir Putins. If you want to look back in time, you get the Pol Pots, you get the Stalins, who are just, and go back further in time, the kings, all the monarchs and the queens. Like, they got their position, it was bestowed upon them based on family lineage, not qualifications. And I think that's the beauty of our system of republic, of a representative democracy, or some bullshit like that. Not bullshit, but you know what I'm saying. And we're trying to turn it into a monarchy. I just see that it hasn't worked. And so why are we just trying to dismantle our system of accountability and checks and balances? There's a, you want to talk about the deep state? Uh, as far as I'm concerned, it's all the same. There's no, the one side calls it the deep state, the other side calls it corrupt politicians. They're all the fucking same thing. They're all doing the same shit. Um, anyway, so but they're setting a bad example. That's the whole fucking point here. You can see the catastrophe, the train wreck of a government and a system that we have right now, because none of the important actors are behaving appropriately. And I don't think that's a judgment call. I don't think that's a incorrect way to describe exactly what's going on. I think that's wholly accurate. They're setting bad examples. They're behaving in bad ways, and they're giving license to the citizen, the adults in the room, to act in the same manner. And that's exactly what's happening. They're acting the same. You could think of riding in the street, and although there are good components to BLM, we can see how some of the trolls there have diminished the messaging in that protest. Not to mention antagonists from the other side embedding themselves there. And you could flip the script on its head and put it to the other side. January 6th is a great example there. You have the citizens who are collapsing in on the capital of the United States, and they're easily manipulated, and you can just see them being steered like sheep. And it's like, holy shit, why is this happening? This should not be happening. Our leaders should be intervening, but instead they step back and say, well, I can't control that. It's nonsense. It's just readily apparent that you created the environment for the constituent to behave that way. Not only that, you're influencing them to do just that. And so I think people should be held accountable on both sides, but so should the elected leaders, and they should take blame. They're not going to take ownership, but we should assign blame to all of them, from the presidency to the legislature to the judicial branch, for the results like that we're getting in society. It's not on us, it's on them mostly. We have a role to play, but if they were leading better, you'd have less instances of that. I guarantee it. And I think you can see exactly why I would say I guarantee it too. I hope you can. All right, but I'm going to keep going. So you have the executive, the legislative, and judicial branch acting like shit. Sophomoric hijinks in the Congress, sophomoric hijinks in the level of the presidency, an incongruency with justice, the definition of the word justice in our judicial system, performed and executed by the justices. And it's not a good look for them. And that in and of itself is the problem. They are trolling us. And because we are adopting those behaviors. So if the adults in our lives are behaving like the troll online, they're behaving like the troll in their personal life. You know, I don't like the term Karen, because we shouldn't assign a name. We should assign a characteristic to it so we can all participate in the appropriate attribution of those traits. Because, you know, a Karen implies, I'll say it, a white lady, out of control, outraged white lady. That's not true. Anybody could be a fucking Karen. So what's the behavior there? It's, you know, that outrage, that instant emotional output that's based on some sort of external trigger that causes that type of, the troll, that type of behavior. The Karen isn't, you know, I don't think you should call it a Karen. It's a troll. Stop fucking being a troll. But it's the political apparatus, it's the media, it's all those things that are demonstrating the example, showing us the example of how to behave, and we're adopting that behavior. So if now you're a troll online, you're a troll in real life, you're supporting the trolls at the higher levels, what the fuck are your children gonna do? How are the young people gonna behave? They're gonna adopt their own version of the troll, the activist, or the protester, or the rioter, or the insurrectionist, right? That behavior is predicated on the behavior of the leaders, of the leadership. Mostly, yes. Because I haven't, in my lifetime at least, seen it work any other way. And so I think I belabored that point. Um, let's move on from social media and our political leaders and their fucking failures to our parenting failures. Let's look in the mirror a little bit. All right. Um, so all their behavior, we justify our trolling behavior because, hey, they're doing it. Oh, well, I'm following this guy and he's doing it. He's the highest position or role in the country and or on the planet, the most powerful position. If he can do it, that means it's okay. Then I need to follow him. No, you don't. You don't have to agree with the leader every time. Leaders can be wrong, and right now they are, more than ever, I think. Simply because we know way better now. We're not plagued by the ignorance of the 1800s or 1700s, however the fuck that works. As parents, we have a responsibility of continued growth. We have to continue to try to expand our minds and develop the ideas and philosophies and concepts that will allow us to teach our children better. Not just teach them better, but not just teach them better through demonstration and lecture, but through example. My dad used to drink a lot, but I see he abandoned that. Why did he do that? He explained it to me, and he looks a lot better. He's thinking a lot better. He's way more successful in his career since he stopped, drinking so much and making it a habit. Now his habit is exercise and trying to eat right and get healthy. And I can see the results, and now he's going to be there for my grandchildren. Not only that, but his thinking is better. He taught me how to navigate certain hard parts of my life because he put some thought into it, because he wasn't looking at the bottom of a bottle as opposed to looking at the pages of a book. And so you could see really quickly how self-development is a necessary component of the parent in order to do for their children to do better, right? Our goal as a parent is always like that, just that instinctual philosophy. I want my kid to do better than I did, at least for most of us. And it doesn't have anything to do with money. If we make our children better people, the money will come. That shouldn't be a concern. Of course, we want to teach them those things, but it's more about our character. We want to teach them how to have good moral character, ethical character. What do those words even mean? Have an open mind about different levels of ethics and stuff like that. Just depend on what you're doing, where you're at, the scenario, your position, like the position of the presidency. You're supposed to be as flawless as you can be. And there are people who achieve they're nobody's flawless, but you have people who can get closer to that than the clowns we have in charge right now. And the problem is the people who can get closer to that are locked out of power because, well, if you get a clown over here who's willing to do the corporate master's bidding, then you know who's going to get supported to get elevated to the position of authority. It's not complicated. Anyway, moving on. So we got to continue to improve. We don't want to stagnate in our growth because it's detrimental to our parenting. It's detrimental to our children. You want it again. The examples avail themselves in mass right now. Student protests. You look at our campuses and you could look at elementary school. You have children who are self-identifying as a different gender, and I'm not going to get into that today. But they don't want to by law they don't have to let the parent know. You know what? That's some adults right there are failing big time, because as a parent, I should be the primary instructor of my child, whether it has to do with religion, the actual, sciences, arts and sciences, the whole bailiwick of learning. It falls on the parent's shoulders. It's delegated in part to the state because we send our kids to school because we pool our tax dollars so that all of our children can get educated, not just some. That component of the system maybe is good, but what isn't good about a component of that system is now that they pass laws that tell teachers that they can exclude certain portions of your child's personality from your purview because the state deems that the child might be in danger if they're misgendering themselves at home, or gendering themselves in a different. See how confusing that is? Like what the fuck are we talking about anymore? Why are state schools, or not state school, like however you want to look at it, why are schools withholding information from the parents? Those are adults making decisions on a parent's behalf. I don't think so. As shitty as some parents are, I think the vast majority of them are great. I think they're all trying their best. They're putting one foot in front of the other, fucking getting that job, getting that money, trying to pay the bills, trying to raise their children with good character, like I'm talking about here. It's just harder to do when you have antagonistic forces like the state passing laws or rules that prevent you from fully participating in your child's development. That's just wrong. And so that's why, as a parent, you must continue to grow. You must continue to grow intellectually, philosophically, politically, so that you can influence, hopefully through your vote, an informed vote, the people who are in control, the levers of power that are going to make the laws that prevent you from parenting the way you want to. I think it's bullshit. Again, our elected leaders, state governors, are playing a game with the constituency, and they're playing chicken with the two sides, and it's not a good thing. We shouldn't be putting each other in ethical dilemmas. We shouldn't be putting each other where we're in positions of contention, and they're positing us in positions of contention, literally against each other. Why? So we can stay distracted that they're not doing their job. So parenting, we have a lot of work to do. I think our reliance on the school system, on the $400 a week babysitter, or it's probably more for some people. I don't know how that works. That's expensive. All these different systems that we give our kids to, we count on them to do the right thing. I think we need to change our mind for a little while and say we can count on them to not do the right thing, that they don't always have the best interest. I'm not talking about the teachers. I think the teachers are, again, just innocent. Not always, but mostly innocent bystanders. They're reacting to policy being forced upon them by the leadership. Again, these are leadership failures. You can't blame the teachers. The teachers are just putting out what they put out based on the curriculum that's being approved. And frequently these days, it's wrong. The curriculum is wrong. So what you end up is with these kids who maybe don't know how to behave. They don't know how. They don't understand emotional regulation. They don't understand that sometimes you're gonna have a bad day and it's okay. Pick yourself up. They're forgetting those lessons because the adults, the leadership in their lives, is absent, or is corrupt, or is misinformed, or themselves are being misled by the powers that be. And so the parents are not zigging or zagging in any correct type of coherent fashion. And so the kids, of course, their heads are going to be filled with chaos. And that's our failure as parents. I don't know how else to look at it. I can just see the college student these days and understand what's happening on some of our campuses. I never wanted to believe that our learning institutions were preaching some strange ideology that helped the student absolve themselves of personal responsibility, personal accountability, and worse than that, robbing them of the opportunity to challenge themselves to grow in a very fundamental and positive way. But instead, we've stagnated their growth with ideas that have endings. They go nowhere. These ideas that we could. I don't want to misspeak here. We can manifest our reality, but it can't be based on unfounded principles. Pure imagination is good, but it's not good enough. It has to be injected with some facts and science and cold-heartedness of life, some reality. But we're selling our kids a fantasy and telling them that that's the way to go and it's okay and nobody's going to stop you from being Harry Potter. I'm sorry, but you're not going to become Harry Potter. There's no fucking magic wand. Maybe one day there will be, right? But that's technology, and that technology is based on the the intellectual development of our scientists and our maybe our AI is going to do that for us. But instead, we're selling the kids this idea that you could be and do whatever you want. All you have to do is change your mind about it. But frequently, that is not true. We are setting our kids up for failure. And again, it's on us and collectively. And that's because we're not willing to have the honest discussions about what a kid's sexuality is. I think we beat that horse to death. I think we understand that some of our kids are going to be gay. Some of them are going to be transgender. Some of them are going to be fucking bullshitting and pulling the wool out over our eyes. Some of them are confused, and we have to get them the assistance to understand what it is to be a young person, and that being a young person is confusing, and that conforming to a certain role or gender is actually beneficial, because it'll tell you whether you're right or wrong. You have to act on those lines if you're born with certain body parts, because it's going to inform you as to what direction you need to take. You shouldn't be making up your mind arbitrarily about things that are scientifically fact, unless you have more information to deviate from that norm. And we're just not teaching and preaching that concept. And there's nothing wrong from deviating from the norm if you have information, if you can justify your position and get everybody else to understand. And sometimes you can't, but mostly you can. I think we all embrace and love our LGBTQ brothers and sisters, but there's a component to it right there that it goes well beyond the realm of reality and goes into somewhere else, and it's harming our kids, sometimes in permanent ways. And that's a definition of abuse, and we need to stop doing that. We need to give these kids the opportunity to seek their own path, but armed with knowledge and armed with the information and armed with a proper guide. And unfortunately, all that is subjective, but I think if we have discussions, we can come closer to what is more correct, even if we can't be perfect. But we're not doing that. So we've got to fight the trolls, we have to set the example. And I've outlined ways that our political leaders, our political apparatus, our branches of government, social media, and us and as parents, how we're failing the youth and how we're failing to steer them right and set the example to not be a troll. And the troll is the word. It's just a placeholder for that ugly behavior that we're all displaying right now, as opposed to the quality characteristics that we want to inculcate in our kids, like be strong, be smart, be healthy, be a free thinker, don't be a sucker. But they can't get there with our fucking current leadership condition, including us as parents. Okay, so how do we flip the script? How do we go from being poor examples to better examples? I don't think we should be too hard on ourselves. Life is full of ups and downs, and I don't think it's any different as society moves together. Whether or not we work together, society still moves forward. And I think we have an influence over whether that forward trajectory works in the negative or in the positive. And right now, just like that waveform undulation of our lives, where we have great experiences and we have bad experiences, and we have to learn and regroup so we can start to climb again. It's the same with society. Society is an entity. It's like an anthill, and you can see the anthill. It's not going to be developed by one single ant. It takes the entire colony to make the anthill function as a system. Why? So that they can make more ants, so they can raise their kids, so they can grow up and make other anthills down the way. That's ant society. But in human society, and specifically here in our country, in the United States, we have the opportunity to change the trajectory, to go from this downward slide of being a poor example and not behaving in a proper manner and gaining that emotional and intellectual maturity so that we can become better teachers again and start guiding our children and society in general in a better direction, so we can put our children on a better trajectory for positive growth, not just in the self, but as a community, as a society. It sounds like a fantasy right now that I'm outlining that way, but I saw it work when I was a kid. I did see, some adults who were making an honest effort to do their best to teach. I can think of teachers, I could think of, aunts and uncles, cousins in my life who are adults who are behaving in the proper way, or in a way that was conducive to a quality life. And I followed their example, where I listened to those people, and it improved my life immensely, in every way. But we have a responsibility to do better. And so how do we do that? Let's see. Our kids learn by observation. One of the primary ways of learning is just by watching. We've all seen that scene play out. Whether it's a meme, right? It's a mental meme where the dad is underneath the car turning a wrench. He's got the car up on lifts, and you get the toddler come out there with the breadstick and apply the breadstick to a component of the vehicle and start to twist, his little breadstick to influence whatever he thought he was influencing, because that's what dad is doing. So the very mere fact that we're doing things around our kids influences them in a big way, whether we like it or not. And a lot of it is they're just watching us. They're just watching what are mom and dad doing. And that's why it's so important to set a good example. That's why it's so important to be doing the right thing at all times, even when nobody's looking. That's the definition of integrity that the Army uses. Do the right thing even when nobody's looking. I'm pretty sure that's pretty close to the dictionary definition to it, but there are a lot of different components of integrity. That's why I want to leave the opportunity to expand on the definition of the word integrity, because there's much more to it than that. But generally, you want to be operating with integrity so that when your kids catch you doing something and you don't expect them to be observing, that if you're doing the right thing and operating your life right, that when they catch you off guard, you're doing the right thing. And when they see that, they're like, well, Dad, why is he helping that person over there? He don't know them. What's going on? And I'm sorry for using the dad analogy a lot, but I guess as a guy, that's the point of view I have. But it's no different from mom. Why is mom helping her sister over there with the children? What about us? And come to find out is, if you have a mom who cares about you, she'll say, hey, I was over there for a little while because your aunt is having an issue and she needed help with your cousins. And that's what we do as a community. We help each other. And the kids, those lessons of cooperation, of how do you say it, of generosity with their time, are demonstrated to them in real time, and they capture those things. We underestimate how intelligent our children are, and just how much their receptors are turned on and the inputs are avail themselves. That's why when kids go through trauma, in my opinion, I'm not a scientist, but I assume that's why when they go through trauma, it's so impactful, because all the receptors, all the receivers are turned on, because they're trying to learn as much as they can. Because I assume that back in the day, I don't know how long ago, hundreds of years ago, in order to make it as a child, in order to survive, you had to be fucking paying attention. The environment was probably way more hostile. It's not like now where you have a house, a nice structure, or an apartment. You go to school, it's another structure, another apartment. Probably a few hundred years ago, you didn't have all these amenities. It wasn't a luxurious lifestyle. And to survive as a child, you had to be fucking paying attention. And so in that vein, I think those instincts are not turned off just because we live in a modern world. Those kids, and I think they say from the years 1 to 7 are the most impactful, most impactful parts of their lives is in terms of programming. The way we program, the programs that we upload into our children's brains, and that kind of forms a foundation for the development. And I guess what they're finding is frequently they don't progress much past that programming if we don't teach them that. If first, if we give them bad programming, and second, if we don't later on go back and help them address the programming that might be wrong, that might be plagued with trauma, or other stuff, other behavioral issues, our kids are fucked because we didn't raise them right, due to environment, lack of parenting skill, bad luck, whatever. And so our role as a parent, as a role model, as an example, is highly influential. And so when we begin our trolling behavior, we're setting up our kids for failure. We're setting our kids up for failure. And I don't think there's a way around it. Again, the example, the analogy I have comes from my time in the Army. One of the tenets of leadership is setting the example. How do you expect your soldiers to do something if they haven't seen you do it themselves? And you could say, well, fuck, I'm the leader. Just fucking go do that shit. Okay. When you get a person out there and you're working on a task and it's dangerous and it's hard to do and it requires a lot of technical know-how and capability, there's something about having the experience to go out there and do it first and show them that it can be done that is invaluable. I can't assign a value to be able to demonstrate to somebody that you can do something hard, because you see these kids or these young people, their eyes light up, the fucking light bulbs are going off as you're executing the task, because they're like, what, this dumb fuck, what the fuck, you doing that? Yeah, we're doing that, and we're supposed to do hard, challenging things, and we're supposed to overcome those hard, challenging things, not just for ourselves, because we're setting the example for the guy or gal who comes behind us and has to do that thing, not just for themselves, but also for the next man or woman up. And if you think about our current state of the military, how it's, I don't know, I hate to speak this way, because the previous generation always says the same shit. Oh, in my time, we didn't do it like that. Well, obviously not. Times change, man. But the concept of the leader being the example, I'm 100% certain that hasn't changed. That they probably still preach that shit. That I assume that has been a lesson indoctrinated by the military, simply because it works. It's a fact that the leader is an example, and that the leader is highly influential to the behavior of the rest of the formation. And all you have to do is look at our national leadership, and then look at the constituency and see the parallels in their trolling behavior. I don't think it's different. And so, as our kids watch us, as the young people watch us behave and how we deal with conflict and resolve our problems and our issues, if all we're doing is yelling at each other, insulting each other on a national debate stage, on national television, what do you think the constituency is going to do? We need better leaders. The answer is not for the constituents to fight and revolt with each other. It's to rebel within the guise of the law, because we need rules, general rules to guide us. We've got to come together. And I hate the fact that really one of our only weapons against the system that exists in its current state is the vote. And not just the vote, but also a reduction in our trolling behavior, and fighting the desire to follow our leadership and to behave in the way that they're behaving. Instead, break off from the norm, and we need to do our own thing as citizens. We need to stop trolling each other. If they want to act like shitheads on the national debate stage, although it gives us license to do the same thing, it doesn't mean that it's a good thing. And it also doesn't mean that we can't form our own methodology for dealing with each other. We don't have to follow the example, especially a bad example, which teaches us to attack our opponent, to attack our neighbor, when in reality, they're a citizen on the same level and in the same country as we are. We're supposed to have our differences and discuss them and have philosophical debate and resolve the differences. We're not supposed to perpetuate the difference and keep going down that rabbit hole, because that's easy to do. That is a cop-out. We are supposed to challenge ourselves in every which way manageable, physically, intellectually, educationally. Are we a good parent? And if we're not, can we shore up those weaknesses? Because we want to demonstrate to our children that you have to improve, that this life, the name of the game is improvement. Improvement for survival, not just of the individual, but for the tribe, the society. And I know I belabored the point today, as I always do, I guess. But the last concept I want to share with you is, as if we're going to set the example, how do I do that? What is a methodology that I can use besides just trying to do the right thing at all times, which is kind of vague, although it's kind of a simple structure. What are some other systems? There's this other concept called be no do. You know, be the leader, be the role model. And what does that mean? Look up what all that shit fucking means. What does it mean to lead your tribe? What does it mean to be a role model? What does it mean to be an example? What like the textbook definition? Let me look in the dictionary. Let me do a Google search to see how these other organizations discuss the role of the leader. What does it mean to be a leader? To fill that role. There's a bunch of different philosophies, a bunch of stuff that goes into it. Pick a philosophy, start tugging at those threads, and you will start to learn really quickly that even though there are different organizations and they apply the methodology a different way and they have different words and a different organizational culture, that there's a common thread there, and that's that the leader is always trying to be the best at what they do in almost every capacity. I don't think I'm making that up. I don't think that's exactly the way I see it, or as I've observed it. Next, no. All right. So now I know how to be a leader, or I know information in my profession that allows me to be a leader, right? Because again, as a leader, if you can't set the example, if you can't do the thing, how do you expect your subordinates to follow? Some people are like, show me. I never seen that shit done. Show me. Again, one of the primary ways of learning is simply observation. Show me. I don't think that's an insulting question. Oh, you want to see that it can be done? I'll show you. And if you're a highly competent leader, if you know what the fuck you're doing, not only can you show them how it's done, but as you're doing it, you can explain the philosophy. You can perform and execute the task to a high degree with a great deal of precision in a manner that they've never seen it accomplished before. You're impressing them. Literally, that you're impressing upon them how it should be done, the why about it. It should be done, and you're influencing them through demonstration. And it is so powerful. And when we abandon the idea that we can show, or that we need to show our young people, whether they're our children or our subordinates, or just the young people in general, when we abandon the idea that we're supposed to set the example, and that there is a right and a wrong way, and there's a high degree of accuracy, and we can strive for much better than we're seeing, without the example, why would they believe it? It's just words at that point. So it's the demonstration, the execution of the task, and the example that we set with our children that is the thing that leaves the most impression. It's the bigger lesson. It's the demonstration. And then it gives them the courage to do themselves, because you've shown them that it can be done. And it allows them to reach higher. And if you teach them everything that you know, now they go armed with the knowledge that you had, and the knowledge that they've been able to develop over their lifetime, and apply it and set the bar even higher, not lower it with the way we're doing now. I think it's a backwards slide. But I guess my point is to encourage you to be the example, to seek out harder challenges, to smile in the face of adversity, because that's the other thing, right? The whole reason what gave me the idea to set the example as a medication for the troll, is that as adults, I think I've seen that we're not doing as good enough job of handling our shit. What do I mean? When we have hard times, now we're starting to succumb to the depression. We're starting to succumb to the anxiety, and it's a component of life. I don't think there's any way around that. But I think there was a time when we could just deal with the shit way better. Um, you know, I think of my mom and all the things that she went through. And I wonder, how she pulled us along, because she had 3 kids. How did she pull us along through some of the shit I saw her go through? I mean, she had to make it for herself. And then she had to take care of us, which she did. And I think back to some of those scenarios, and I don't know how she did it, but she did it. And I assume maybe sometimes I saw her cry, but mostly I saw her work. That's really what I saw from her output. She saw the problem and she met it head on. And to her credit, maybe she only had her skill of labor. She was a smart woman, but she wasn't, she didn't go to college or nothing like that. But it was her physical determination, because she had a labor job, that pulled her through. And watching her work, the 10 to 12, sometimes 16-hour days on occasion, 6 to 7 days a week, typically 6 days, but sometimes 7 days a week. She set the example for me. She set the bar so high that when I joined the Army and I was tired in the morning and I thought of her, I said, don't be a bitch. Your mom could do it. You could do it. So the examples in our lives are just so important, that the value in that demonstration, sets the tone. It's so important. But in that vein, we are also not setting the example of resiliency for our young people. We're breaking down. We're complaining about depression. We need a doctor to help us with our problems, which is not an issue. The issue is, how much effort are we putting into solving the problem ourselves? How much pain are we willing to tolerate before we say, ouch, it hurts? I think pain threshold, pain tolerance is different for every individual, but I think there is a baseline. There has to be a baseline. We can't continue to go down the rabbit hole to give permission to allow ourselves to complain about every little nick, every little scratch, every little pinprick, every little slight against us is trauma now. And again, we want to be sensitive to the people that are actually going through stuff, but we have to stop painting this perception that even the slightest amount of trauma is unhealthy. I think to the contrary, it's those, and we're mislabeling trauma, by the way. I just came, somebody just elucidated that to me. Anyway, not everything is trauma. Sometimes shit just happens. You just got to take it. It's like the running back running through the hole, right? They hand the running back the ball, and everybody's coming for him. And if he's gonna behave the way we're behaving right now, he would just sit down in the backfield, because what's the point of trying to run through the line if everybody's just gonna try to tackle me? Well, that's the fucking point. In life, you're running with the ball of your goals, the ball of your desires, and life will come at you. Life is coming for you, whether you like it or not. And it's not personal. You're just going to have problems. We're going to encounter things. And as adults, I think we've given license to our young people to behave in a weak way, because that's what we're doing. We're copping out every moment. We're getting hooked on alcohol, marijuana. We're getting hooked on meth, food. We're out of shape. We're not setting good examples. I'm guilty. I'm complicit. I'm not excluding myself. But what I'm saying is, how do we combat the troll? How do we combat the fact that our leaders upstream are behaving so erratically and unbecoming that they're influencing the rest of society to act like shit too? Well, we have to change. We have to be the example. We have to come together to be the role model. Since our leaders aren't willing to fucking step up, we have to do it. You have to be that courageous one. You have to be the strong one. You have to be the one that seems impervious to pain. And then you have to come back after the hard times and talk to your children, talk to the young people and say, hey, this is what happened. I think we all see that we went through a hard time. This is what I was feeling at the time, and this is what I went through. These are the tears that I shed into my pillow at night. stressed out over these particular things, and show them that there is a human aspect to the pain, but that the pain can be tolerated, endured, and you can still accomplish going through all those things, whatever the hardships may be. We need to get back to that, because that's exactly what my mom taught me. Because now in hindsight, I can see all the things that she went through to carry all of us through, including herself and the three of us. And I'm grateful that she set such a good example for me, because it gave me the will to get up in the morning every day over a 22-year Army career. She was an impetus, I mean, for the energy. You know, my firstborn was an impetus for just the thought of wanting to improve my life in a significant way. But my mother, one of the adults in my life, she was the impetus for the energy in the morning, because I saw her get up at 3 in the morning and come back home at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 at night. And before that, she used to work the night shift, so she was gone by 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And when I saw her in the morning, when I was getting ready to go to school, she was asleep. And so that demonstration on behalf of my mom to me and my brother and sister set the tone for my work ethic for the rest of my life. And I'll never be able to repay for that. That was a gift that keeps on giving. And I look at my brother and my sister, and my sister has 2 jobs. My brother, he's a roofer. He's out in the elements. He lives in Colorado, so he travels to Wyoming and Idaho and different parts of the central North America, the central part of the country in the north, South Dakota, and he's working in the cold, in the elements. Right, it's cold in the wintertime out there. He's a beast, and I have a lot of respect for my brother and sister because of how hard they work and what they do to take care of themselves and their families. But that didn't come from us. That came from our mom, and probably beyond that, not just our mom, but our culture. I'm American, but I'm of Mexican descent. My father was from Zacatecas, and I look at the cross section of my aunts and uncles on either side of the family and how hard they work and what time they get up in the morning and how many hours they put in it. They just set the tone. It's like, well, damn, if they could do it, I can do it. And because I look at their lives too, their lives are good, they're quality. And inspired me to want to do it too. And I did. And I chose a path and I took it, but I brought the tools of work ethic with me that were given to me by my mom, the adults in my life, my ancestors. And in that vein, we owe it to our kids to do the same thing for them. We're in debt to our parents, and we repay that by showing our kids how to do the same thing. That's how we repay our debts to our parents for all the sacrifices and hardships that they went through to get us through to the point of 16, 17, 18, and we're off on our own and have our own individual mind and our life to chart. They give us the tools to do that, and we owe our children. We're failing them. We're failing them by not demonstrating to them that they can be strong, that they're tough as fucking nails, and they're tougher than that even. And if we focus enough, and we meditate, and we give ourselves the time to take care of our health, eat right, exercise, calm down, and work on our mind, that we can not only take the tools that our parents have given us, our ancestors, but we can keep building on those things. Instead, we're in modern times and this time, right, like right now, we're disassembling all that. And I don't understand. And I don't want to let that happen. And I guess what I'm going to do here is, even if I fail, I'm going to go down fighting, because these things are important to you and me. Again, going back to religion, we call ourselves a Christian nation. And I don't see any Christian behavior. I don't. I mean, you can argue with me if you want to, but I'm willing to have the debate. I don't see it. Where are the examples? Where are the moral characters? Literally, where are the moral characters? Give me a moral character that I can follow on the national stage. I don't see them. They're stooges. Give me the moral character in our corporations. Who's behaving right? Who's operating in balance with the environment and the society that they're creating? I'm challenged to think of one. Because I'm thinking of all the names and all the people and all the scenarios, and in every single one, I can easily call out how they're fucking failing as leaders on every level, on every fucking level, in every category. And it's sad. It's tragic. So it's up to us to fight the system. All right. So I've discussed how do we help the troll. Not to be a troll is don't be one. Um, don't feed them. Don't feed the troll. It's easy. As soon as you start feeding them, they're like a weed. It's like giving a weed water. It's gonna propagate. It's gonna grow. It's gonna sprout. It's gonna have its beautiful, attractive period. But then it's gonna die, shrivel, and it's gonna be a seed spreading instrument and continue to propagate the seeds throughout the environment. The seeds of weeds. Anyway, weeds aren't so bad, but it's just an analogy. They're not preferable. All right, we have to set the example. That's another way that we help to fight the trolling of our society through social media, through our elected leaders, quote unquote elected leaders, through our shortcomings as parents. We have to set better examples. It's not hard. Just try harder. Just outline our strengths and our weaknesses, and bolster our strengths and improve our weaknesses. Like, it's not a unfamiliar territory to us. We know how to do this. I say we should get busy. And lastly, I wanted to close it out with, there's another solution I'm working for. And how do I combat the giant trolls, the government, the corporations, the ones that I seemingly, as a citizen, as an individual, don't have any control over whatsoever. Like, I have a vote, but it's almost meaningless. Almost. And what do I say? Almost. Here we go. I look at the giant trolls, the government, the corporations, as the social media platforms, even as a leviathan. And in order to kill the leviathan, you need another leviathan. And it doesn't have to necessarily be the same, but it has to have some of the same characteristics. It has to have a weapon of equal force or strength, or it has to have a weapon that can attack the vulnerability of the leviathan. And in that way, somebody has to win or lose. And that's pretty much how life is, right? You take on your challenges, you look for your strengths. What do I use to take on this challenge? And then what tools am I missing in order to overcome? And it's the same with as we combat the negative trajectory of our leadership in our world and in our country. And in order for us to fight it, and I'm going to use some, I guess, fantasy here, because that's all I have at the moment. We have to form Voltron. We have to come together. Like, there's just no other way to fix it. We have to not participate. We have to choose not to participate in the nonsense. And I'm not saying don't vote. I think that's a necessary exercise. But how we feel, our state of mind as we go to the ballot box this year, and I think for the foreseeable future, it matters a lot. And if we go into the ballot box of the mind that I love my brother and I love my sister, and we've had a discussion about our value system, and maybe I didn't change my mind about who I'm going to vote for, we've begun to bridge the gap. We've begun to sew and stitch together the different sides of the divide through our brotherhood and through our sisterhood and through our friendships and through our genuine concern from one another. We've begun to sew the divide close through our understanding in our spiritual matters, in our religious matters, and where do the congruencies lie. And we understand that it helps us all to try to behave in a positive manner, in a good manner, and to be good examples for our children, regardless of what side of the divide you stand on. I think those are enduring principles over time, regardless of what culture or who you are. Anything that has been built that is quality over time is probably built on those fundamental principles that the people there got along to some degree, so that they could create progress, so they could generate the new ideas and new technologies based on their combined collective minds. It doesn't take a genius to formulate those ideas. You could just see it. It's observable. You just have to open a history book on occasion, and it's just readily apparent that those people, to some degree, had to work hard. Think of the pyramids in any part of the planet. And there's different ideas and philosophies these days of how those things got put there. But one thing that is not in question is that it took collaboration in order to put those things into effect, or to build those things. And so we have to, as a society, as the constituency, as a voter, we have to form Voltron and take the hostility of our discussion out of our discussion. Um, I didn't say don't have vigorous debate, because that's necessary at times. But to hate our brother, to dislike them, to want to kill them, to want to have a civil war, that's a different level of discontent that really doesn't serve progress and can only result in the collapse of our society and create literally no winners, with the exception of the fucking people at the top. And I fucking hate that I've begun to speak that way, because now I sound kind of like the what do you call those people? The cynics in our media, and our some of our influential thinkers. And I used to think that they were leading us wrong, but maybe they were just trying to show us. And anyway, it's a real confusing time, and that's why I'm having a discussion. Even though nobody's listening, like, that's why I'm having this discussion, is how do I solve the problem within myself? How do I not contribute? I'm not going to feed the troll, and I'm not going to be a troll. And if my brother and sister want to have a quality discussion about the problems that plague our life, so that they can help me navigate the system better, so that we can work together to improve the system, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to help them form Voltron and fight these bastards who have nothing but self-interest in mind for themselves. What else? We have to begin to think better. How do you fight the giant troll? We form Voltron, and then we begin to think better. As individuals, you have to seek out that knowledge. And I think as individuals, the better we grow and the more quality knowledge we inject into our heads as we get together to discuss these things as we're forming Voltron, better ideas will come to light. The intellectual conversation will be so much more mature. And maybe we won't ever be Einstein, but I can guarantee you we'll be better than the fucking shit that's being propagated now. What else? Better thinking. How do we get to better thinking? Reading. So this is one of my biggest, a big concern for me. I've heard in a couple places now lately about the statistics on reading. Our reading ability in this country is dismal. You have like 40% of the population who in the United States, adult population, that can barely read at a 5th grade level. That's a problem. I can't believe that we fail these people. And people want to say, oh, those fucking dumb fucks. They're not dumb fucks. We have public school. We pump billions of dollars into our education system, and 40% of our adults can't read. That's a leadership failure. Again, a leadership failure. It's not on the citizen. And you can listen to different ideas of why that happened, and it's by design. It's, again, money got in the way of our children getting educated, of our populace getting educated and learning one of the fundamental tools to inject information into our fucking head, and that's reading. You're not always going to have an orator, or a quality orator, or orator that's going to give you the facts. Sometimes you got to seek those facts out for yourself, and you have to read it with your own eyes, and you have to read it with the mind of with the voice of your mind, and speak it into yourself, because nobody's going to fucking give it to you. But we've robbed people of that skill, of that talent. It's bullshit. Why do we do that? It's worse than that, because as you go up, okay, so 40% only read at the 5th grade level. How about the 8th grade level? Or maybe maybe it is the 8th grade level, 40%. It doesn't matter. That's still junior high, right? Like I started off this conversation. In the past, you walk into any given room, the average maturity level is high school. Best you can do. I guess that's good enough. But nowadays, it's junior high. Like, we have this type of preteen/teen adolescent behavior that plagues the highest levels of leadership in our country. And there you go. That's probably why, because we're not instructing and developing the citizens so that they can do better. Or maybe that's by design, so that we can't see that that they behave in such a callous and ugly way. Um, but reading ability, uh, we have, excuse me, as adults, I think we have the tools at our disposal. If we're willing to give some time to it, lend some time to learning how to read. Um, I don't know. I think I've shared this story where I think one of the only books in my house as a youth, as a person, as a kid, was the dictionary, and it was gifted to me by a teacher. And because it was one of the only things to read in the house, I picked it up, and you start to look through it and you learn stuff. I won't belabor the point with that story, but it set the tone for my intellectual curiosity. Doesn't mean I'm a genius. It doesn't even fucking mean I'm smart. But it does mean that I get the opportunity to learn stuff and understand things at a different level or from a different perspective, etc. And we need that. You need to do that for yourself. The better you understand something, the better decisions you can make for yourself, the better opportunities you can craft for yourself, the better you can set yourself up for success, the better you understand your finances, the better you understand the language, the better you understand your job, the better you understand your children, philosophy. It's unlimitless once you start doing it. Once you start to open the floodgates of curiosity and intellectual maturity, you won't want to stop growing. That seed will continue to develop. And I would say even better than the weeds that we're talking about, better than the trolls in our lives. The the positive aspects of it simply can't be overstated. They can't. Once you learn how to read or learn in your way, and I think reading is one of the building blocks of that. You'll be limitless. You'll, at least to your personal talent and capability, you'll be unbounded by the shackles of ignorance. Where we find ourselves frequently. I still run into dead ends on this podcast, or not podcast, this little speech, this little storytelling crusade I'm on. I know I sound like a moron sometimes. I listen to this shit myself. All that means to me is that I don't have all the answers. I'm not practiced enough, that I have a lot of development to do. And I could look at that as a negative, or I could look at it as a positive. And I think I'm embracing the idea that I don't know, not embracing, I've always embraced the idea that I don't know everything. But the fact that I'm trying to put it out here in such a fashion only encourages me to do a better job and get smarter. And I think you'll find the same thing once you pick up a book and start to figure out how to read for yourself, how to improve your reading level, your reading comprehension, just ingestion of the words themselves. Like it's a necessary exercise for improvement of the self, but also of the society, of the Voltron. Anyway, I think we failed our people by not teaching them how to read, because reading is so fundamental. How do we fix that? I don't know. The tools are out there. I think it's just up to us at this point. We have to walk around with the understanding that the school's not solving the problem, because of big money interests have also infiltrated our educational systems. So it's up to the citizen, it's up to the parent, and the adults in the children's lives to help them learn to read and understand and comprehend. And more than that, understand when our brother and sister doesn't have that capability. And if they want to know, teach them. Can't force that shit on people, I guess, but if they want to know how to read, teach them. Take interest in teaching your brother and sister how to read, because in the long term, it improves your life. And so you're giving people the gift of knowledge, and they can improve themselves and therefore improve their environment. And if you exist in their environment, therefore improve your environment. It's a self-licking ice cream cone. It's a beautiful thing. So I encourage everybody to learn how to read and learn how to read better, and pick up a book. The phones are a great tool, but I think there's something, I don't know what to call it, tangible about getting that book and feeling it in your hands and reading the words on the page, and having a conversation with somebody else. Have you read this book? And some of us can ingest it in digital format, but I think mostly somehow we're tied to the analog for some reason as far as reading is concerned. Anyway, moving on. So how else do we form better thinking so that we can form Voltron? Elixirs, and I kind of lump intoxicants into this category. I call it elixirs, because I've changed my perspective on intoxicants since I was a young person. And I think there's no there's no bad or good to them. Well, that's the wrong way to say it. I think they're a tool. Um, I heard somebody say that some things like alcohol, uh, peyote, ayahuasca, marijuana, all these different mushrooms, psilocybin, naturally occurring substances have no other purpose in nature. Yeah, we have to understand that nature does spawns things out of necessity typically, mostly, almost absolutely. And so the fact that you can eat a mushroom and it affects the human brain, or really of any animal, but it affects it in that way, um, or alcohol that gets fermented from natural substances like fruit and vegetables and barley and hops, um, from cactus, or whatever natural item that exists in nature, that it produces this intoxicant that is not useful in any other realm than to help the the human cope or reach a different perspective or different spiritual plane, which is a very real concept. Um, these elixirs are tools, and I think, um, very much on purpose, they haven't allowed us to learn how to use them. They made them illegal, so you can't even experiment. To expand our minds, to take the things, not just the concepts that are taught to us by our parents, the things that we read, the things that we ingest through experience, um, and gain a completely different perspective based on something abstract that already resides within us, but is invoked by the consumption of an elixir, whether it be alcohol or psilocybin or THC or whatever the fuck. All right, pick your tool. Um, we kind of use them recreationally. I don't know if there's anything wrong with that per se, but it can be done in excess. It can be done to the detriment of your thought process. So I would just say be careful with that. Start to develop a healthy methodology or a healthy philosophy resolving the elixirs in your life. Understand which ones work, which ones don't work, which ones are detrimental, like alcohol. I think alcohol is a tool as well, but that one's just a little bit more dangerous simply because it could be consumed in mass quantities more easily than anything else, and it's easy to go overboard. I don't know what the right balance is. I assume it's different for every person. They have different types of alcoholic elixirs. You have hard liquor, and then even in that category, you have liqueurs, you have clear liquors, you have dark liquors or alcohol. You have beer, and even in that realm, you have different types of beers. You have the IPA, you have the blondes. They have different levels of alcohol content. I assume some of the nutrients in there might even be different. I had no fucking clue. I'm not a scientist on this shit, but what I'm telling you is that there is a methodology that should probably use in consumption of all these things, and the prevention of us being able to learn about that because they're banned, or not banned, worse than that, they're illegal. That it's a it's a it's a crippling us not to be able to establish those philosophies and the proper and healthy ideas revolving the elixirs in our lives. So I'd say learn how to use them. I'm not gonna say avoid them. I don't think you have to consume them, but I think you shouldn't abstain from them in your life simply because society's painted a picture of these elixirs that label them as evil and bad. I don't think that's the case. I think that's some sort of programming, so that we don't use them, so that we don't expand our minds. I'll leave it at that. That's going to lead us to find better ideas. I think we've discussed that. And then lastly, how do we combat the giant trolls? We protest and we advocate. I think the desire is to have a more effective way to protest, and that's why you get some segments of society that think that the protest is an act of violence, or it's an act of physical aggression to teach them, to get their attention. I don't think that that's the most effective way to do it. I think that what happens there is once we cross the boundary into the physical realm of protest, meaning violence, we're fighting somebody physically. And who are we fighting? Are we fighting the government? Like, we don't, it's illegal to overthrow the government. We want to operate within the bounds of the Constitution and legalities. And people sometimes say, well, the bounds are, or the boundaries and the laws are designed to do exactly that, manipulate the levers of power and keep us in check. I don't think so. I happen to believe that the framers of our Constitution, the people that wrote the laws, had a broader perspective on those things. And people, the pundits, the media, our leaders have diminished the actual meaning behind all those thoughts and that thought process. I won't say that they had it absolutely correct. I don't think so. Or else why would you have had slavery at the time? But generally speaking, they set up a framework for us to use so that the citizen would have the ability to replace a corrupt or tyrannic government within the bounds of the law. I think that's still possible. Of course, we have to form Voltron and get the fuck out and vote. We have to form Voltron and improve our intellectual capacity, and then come together and share our ideas and dispel, untruths that are currently believed to be fact. Because there is a truth. We should learn to, or train ourselves to seek it again. We should become better examples in that, and our children will follow suit, and they will actually probably start to teach us one day if we do it right. We protest in a manner that is provides us for some level of decorum that keeps us from getting the blood on our hands. And some people say, "Oh, you're afraid to get your hands dirty." I don't think so. I just happen to know that certain forms of violence in protest, especially in your own backyard, has no benefit for anybody. Everybody loses in that scenario. You had the family brawl because everybody got too intoxicated. Everybody lost. Nobody who won that fight. You could say physically, Joey beat up John, but in the aggregate, because we have that conflict, that physical confrontation, we all lose, right? I don't think it's hard for you to play that scenario out. It's no different on the national level. If we fight our brother and sister, we all lose. So the protest, the advocation has to be intelligent. I don't think there's a way around that in order to preserve our country and the way we live today. That's today's spiel. Today I wanted to talk about other ways to combat the troll. Initially, we started off with do not be a troll and do not feed them. That's been something I've been preaching the whole time as I've been discussing the troll of our society. Another way we can combat the troll is to set the example. Not just by not being a troll, but going above and beyond and demonstrating to our children, to the young people, to our peers, and to the people who supposedly are more mature than us, that there is a better way to do it, that we can operate with decorum, that we can stand upright and walk forward, and that there are rules and there are boundaries, there are guardrails, but we also have to have the intellectual capacity to explain the who, what, when, where, and why. When a young person asks us why, because they're demanding, why do you want me the fuck to do this way? Not just because I said so, right? You don't want, we don't want to give them guidance followed by ignorance. We want to give them guidance followed by the knowledge, the concept as to the why that they're doing things. And finally, how do we combat the giant troll? It takes there's a David and Goliath story that always comes to mind. And while I believe in that the little guy can win, I wholeheartedly believe in that. I think in this instance, because we have to put a stop to the insanity as quickly as we can. We need a giant to fight the giant. We just need it to happen. We can't combat the giant and hope that it happenstance, right? The guy with the sling shows up and is accurate enough to hit the giant in the head and knock him out. Goliath, right? that's a hope, and I rely on hope. Like, the hope is a thing, but it's not the best course of action. If you have a better idea or a better plan, you do that instead, typically. And so I think we need a giant versus a giant. And how do we go up against these giant power structures, the corporations and our governments? And that's just the citizen uniting. It's the citizen getting smart. It's a citizen talking to his brother and sister, regardless of where they stand on the issues, and trying to come to some understanding, because the bigger picture that these people don't have nothing good for us. They don't have nothing good for our wallets. They don't have nothing good for our stomachs. They don't have nothing good for our minds. And that's a fucking problem. And I think you and I can fix it. I think I'll end it at that. This is my form of protest. Because I don't think that the violent methods are going to work. And I think that's their intention too. They want to lead us to violent confrontation, so that we take each other out. One side wins. There's no winners, right? The real winners are only the people at the top, because the same policy and conditions will persist for whoever the quote unquote winner is. And I don't think that's a winner at all. I think that's it's a sleight of hand. It's bullshit.